Hello, hello, hello. It is May 8th. It's around 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. This is going to be a new video. I just got a nice hike in, so I'm taking a little break. And I had a video planned today, another UAP UFO video. It would be video number 9. And I think I'm going to put that on hold. I'm going to record something else. I'm going to interject with something else that came up to me on this short hike today. And it's very beautiful out, extremely clear outside. Very windy though, and cooler than I thought. A lot of interesting animals out and about. The turtles are everywhere if you don't spook them. Saw a dead salamander. It was huge, and I was like, that's too bad. I blessed it, sent it on its way. But that was a trip because I've only ever seen one salamander out here, and I think it was just this past November that I saw it. So that was really weird, and that had a really interesting animal totem to it. The other thing is the windows aren't really down in here, but the sunroof's cracked a little. And it's really funny. The other day I recorded a video wearing a very similar top. I have a couple of these orange Under Armour tops. And then I actually wore a different hat the other day. I know, believe that, right? A black hat. But with the sunroof opened, it looked gray. So I kind of look like I'm wearing the same thing again, and I'm not. But anyway, that's just me being a little bit super self-conscious, right? So part of the story today that I was going to go into that came to me relates to video number 8 that I recorded just a couple days ago about consciousness, vibration, being in tune, being in touch, stepping into other dimensions, seeing other things that are around you all the time, but not always noticing them or being aware of them. Or when you finally hear them or see them or feel them and you're like, oh my God, what the hell was that? It's like that has always been there. You just weren't tuned in. So I'm going to go back into a story, maybe 2 stories that took place right around 2017. And I hope they make sense because they're really coming off the top of my head from my memory. As I journaled them somewhere in a different journal, but it wasn't my focus today until my hike. So I spent 13 years with a company called SCEA, Sony Computer Entertainment America. Okay, that's PlayStation. So I launched the PS1, the PS2, the PS3, the PSP, the Vita, software, hardware, network, peripherals, you name it, 13 years hardcore in a crazy industry. When I left that industry and I was burnt out mentally and physically, I tried some other things, dabbled in a couple other things, and then literally had a major life reset. And I didn't work for 2 or 3 years, okay? Kind of because of all the healing and resetting, part of it just by choice. And then what happened was I was starting to pay attention to virtual reality, okay? And Palmer Luckey and, things he was throwing together and scrapping together. And I'm like, how's this dude just building VR in his garage? But this is how it happens, right? The American dream. So along comes Facebook, and I think they threw down 1 or 2 billion. Purchased, the VR, the Oculus from Palmer Luckey, brought him on, had a little team going of people. And I'm like, where's this going to go? When's it going to get to retail? When's it going to be mass produced? What's it going to lead to? What are they going to do with it in terms of social networking? And then hardware, software, peripherals, experiences, entertainment, everything I had experienced and worked in for, 13 plus years. So plus I had done some Fitbit work and Leapfrog work and other things. So I was like, this is interesting tech. And at the time, other people who had made their money or cut their teeth in the electronic entertainment industry were jumping on at Facebook and taking the Facebook money. Vice president of this, head of this, because they had head of research and design. All these people who had been in the gaming industry for the PC days and the console days and the handheld days and the mobile days were jumping into something new, taking the stock shares, and then just trying to build something badass. And I was like, well, this is where I want to start. This is something I want to start over with. This is something I want to do. So when the opportunities came up in the Chicagoland area, I was able to get an entry-level job for a third-party marketing company at retail that had the, Facebook account, which is now Meta. And I started doing my thing at retail. Demoing, showcasing, educating, merchandising, selling, marketing, multiple stores here and there, multiple markets. giving feedback, doing things, and really having an eye on the industry because I understood stuff. But I also knew that the people who were way on the up and up at Facebook, had cut their teeth too. So they were going to say, hey, this guy knows what he's doing, or hey, this guy at retail's got some good feedback. And that's just a little bit of a nutshell, okay, of what was happening and where I was. And I even saw some people at the time, they're like, dude, like, why are you at this level? Or dude, like, shouldn't you be doing something else in life? And I've never wanted to be a manager. I've always stepped away from that, okay? And I managed when I was in high school, and I realized I don't like fucking babysitting people. And I know that's what managers do, and they motivate and they do other things. But everywhere I've been a team leader or a district coordinator, and every company has always created a position for me, or the team leader position for the company, because, it's just the way it's worked, and that's worked for me. I want to be a team captain. I don't want to be the coach, okay? And while I'm doing what everybody else is doing, I'm always open for feedback from the top down and from down up. And I've always been in the middle, and I like that. That's my jam, okay? So that's a little bit about my past and a little bit about some of my work history and some of the things that happen. So by nature, I was working in a store, Best Buy. We're all familiar with those stores in Schaumburg, Illinois, which is a really, large community of, I think, 130,000 plus people. A lot of businesses there, a lot of offices, office buildings, and a lot of retail. Woodfield Mall, Gulf Road, Manheim or Meacham or whatever. All the different strips I can't even think of right now. Retail mecca. So there I am at that Best Buy working front of store. I see 75 to 100% of everybody that walks into that store at one time or another. And I help them find departments, help them find what they're looking for, or I ask them to step into VR. And everybody at the Best Buy on the upper level knew me because they all knew me from years of working in Chicago, Chicagoland, the greater Chicago area, and then throughout the Midwest. So they knew I was like an asset and a value to their store as far as customer service, helping people finding things, pointing them in the right direction. And at 6'3", I can see the floor, I can see the store, I can point them into a direction, point them into the signage, or even see people in the distance and say, this person needs help, I'm sending them to you. So that's how retail works, right? And all of this is important for my story. So rolling out VR, you would have a lot of different interesting conversations with people, from the novices and the beginners to people who are already using headsets to fly drones and fly planes, to people who are using mobile VR, which was entry level and wonky, to people, who needed a PC, to run the requirements, to some of our other products where you didn't need a PC anymore, or, you could use VR on the go with the Oculus Go. So I'd have a lot of different conversations with people, and I would throw them into the tech, and I would blow their mind. Their jaws would literally drop. Sometimes their legs would start shaking. They would freak out, and the experiences were the real deal. Once I had you in VR, you didn't even understand what was happening around you. And if I could tell you how many times people in the store let out a scream, let out a shriek, had to be held on to, dropped to the ground, started freaking out, started trembling, you name it. Because it's sensory overload, okay? You basically can only see what's happening in that world, and you can only hear it. And depending on the controllers, you're feeling it, or I think you're getting a buzz or a jolt or whatever. So long story short, again, I would do these experiences, and I would have people come in. Oh, I need this for real estate. Oh, I need this for, kitchen and bathroom and home architecture design. I need this for car design. I need this for whatever. I want to try it out before I buy it. Or some of these people were actually running the Microsoft simulator, the flight simulators through their PCs, and the Oculus, worked with it. So people could literally learn how to fly and train and practice. And I ran into a lot of interesting people who are actually pitching sales and pitching products to Facebook at the time for accelerometers and the controllers and hearing things and the earbuds and all this weird tech. So I had a lot of interesting conversations from 13-year-olds on up who wanted to try it and their parents, to 20 and 30-year-olds who were just geeking out, to 40 and 50-year-olds who were in certain industries across the board, to even 50, 60, 70-year-olds who owned companies or owned businesses and wanted to try the tech before they bought it and started, implementing it into their business. because they had clients asking for it, or clients that were already using it and had questions, or competitors. So it was a very interesting place. And I'm a talker, I'm an educator, I'm a trainer, I'm a motivator, I'm a salesperson, I'm a merchandiser, I'm a marketer, I'm into inventory, I'm into sales, I'm into retail. These are all these different things and hats I wear from years of experience, cutting my teeth in an electronic entertainment industry and bringing it into something new. So one day, this dude walks in, and I would say like Pan-Pacific, Asian, and he walks in with another dude, and they want to try the product out, and you have to sign in on our tablet, sign the user agreement, in case you get hurt or something happens. And, you're in retail. So there's people walking around, people shopping, things are happening. And once you're in this VR dimension, it's my job to keep an eye on you, because anything could happen. You could fall, you could throw your arms around, you could end up running forward because you're reacting to the content and the experience. A kid can run into you, some lady in a shopping cart. So there's all these reasons you got to sign in. And then I walk you through a tutorial. I give you a rundown of what's going to happen and how we're going to get fitted and set, because it has to be fitted right. The sound has to be right. Otherwise, you're going to get vertigo, or you're going to get a headache, and it's not going to feel right. You're not going to know what to do. So I go through the steps. I put this guy into the experience. I think a 5-minute experience, and it blows his mind. Normal. The guy next to him, white dude, kind of country looking, kind of like surfer bro looking, goofy long hair like mine, flannel shirt, jeans, never said a word. Was just like, because you can kind of see on the monitor in the store the gameplay from what the other person who's doing the experience is interacting with. And when the one dude was over after 5 minutes of his experience, I think I had him on the mountain, climbing the mountain, playing The Climb. And I'd always get people to hold on to the ledge and look down, and people would freak out, and their legs would shake, and they'd realize the height that they're at, and yada, yada, yada. So the other dude decides to try it. And I have to get him to sign in, or he's already signed in. I get him fitted and set up, and he understands what to do. And I put him into a game, I think it was Time Crisis or Time Cop, and it's a shooter, double guns. And I go, you're going to be rocking and rolling for 15 minutes. You're going to be good to go. So he goes in there, never really said a word to me, never said a word to his friend about the experience, never asked him questions. They weren't even talking amongst each other. And at the time, I wasn't really picking up on that. I was just like, okay, there's two cool bros, and they're just another thing. So I get the surfer country type dude into his experience, and he's just shooting things. He's having fun, and he's just in his own world. I barely even have to watch him. The other dude starts asking me all these questions about the technology. Where do I think it's going to go? What do I think is going to happen next? What do I think they're going to build with it? What do I think they're going to do? What would I do with it? What are my goals? Why am I into this? Why am I so interested in this? And at the time, I had a lot of goals. I wanted to create a social media platform for the metaphysical world and bring together all the people in the metaphysical world who want to be found, and teach classes and teach things and open things up and educate and train and do everything that they all do in their own special way through virtual reality, through a social platform. And what better company to do it with, or to do it for, or to start making connections and seeing where the technology is going, right? And this is an idea that there's so much more I could go into. It literally take hours from what I was working on years ago and trying to put together, but that's another time. So as I'm explaining this to this guy, he's not blinking. He's listening and looking at me like some type of an android or something. And this was way before I knew then what I knew now, or know now, or knew just a few years ago. Like I said, this is like 2017, I think it was, because after that I wasn't doing the stores. I was traveling over the country and doing other things for the program. So that's how I kind of have an idea. And what was interesting was he never blinked. And his mannerisms were just so off. And I started to get this vibration and this feeling to get away from him, to leave, to stop talking to him and his friend. And he was really tripping me out with the energy that was coming at me And like I said, I am in one of the busiest stores in Illinois for Best Buy, at the front of store with the most people in checkout lanes and loss prevention and other general managers. It was a Saturday or a Sunday, and it was hopping and it was bustling. Nobody else came over the entire time that I was speaking with him, or to his friend, who never even spoke back to me or said anything other than like a grunt or a nod. And this guy basically, in a nutshell, tripped me out so much, I had to get rid of them. I'm like, well, I got to take a break. I'm going to shut down. I'm past my lunch. I need to go, and use the bathroom and just whatever. I was throwing everything at them in a very nervous manner, out of my element, because everything within me was telling me to get away from them and to stop talking to him, and that this was not normal. This was not right. Something was not normal here with his eye contact, with his body language, his lack of body language, the fact he wasn't blinking, the fact that he was up in my face, the way he was talking and moving his head, and his friend never said a word. They didn't even look like they were friends, with the way they were dressed differently and just the race, or this dude's lack of input, or this dude's lack of saying anything, or this dude's lack of having an opinion on anything. It's like this guy was a puppet. It's like this guy was with him just to throw everybody else off and just distract everybody else from who this guy was with his questions. And when he said, I really look forward to coming back and talking to you. I really look forward to coming back and seeing you again. I really look forward to having this experience again. That was really throwing me for a loop too, because I'm like, you could have tried another experience, or you can always try it now. Nobody was here. But it was after he started getting into all these questions and the body language and everything else that I chalked it up as a very weird experience. And something internally within me consciously did not want to be anywhere near him again or around him, because something felt off. So it wasn't until years later, mentioning this and meeting my partner at the time and explaining the experience to her, she's like, yeah, it could have been something other. It could have been a hybrid. It could have been somebody in a different dimension or density coming into this dimension to talk to me or pass something off to me or to figure something out or to steer me one way or the other. And way too much to go into right now. But it relates to story number 8, and being connected, being consciously aware, feeling the vibration, and feeling that something was completely off. Did this guy have a gun or a knife and he was going to stab me? No. Was this guy threatening me? No. But like I said, I'm in a retail environment, or I'd worked for like 18 plus years at that point at a very high level. Totally used to being around people in all respects, totally used to having conversations, and this guy just totally threw me off. This guy just totally had me freaked out. Something wasn't right with his body language, his mannerisms, his tone, his eye contact, what was happening with his eyes, and his friend, who was just like a bump on a log. So that relates a little bit to maybe interdimensional experiences, and they're not always going to be with crafts or in the sky. They happen with people, they happen with objects, they happen with things that just appear and disappear. And then one other time in that same store, I had another very interesting conversation with a woman, and I thought I would throw this in today too, because how could I not? She came into the store, jumpy, mousy, tiny, all bundled up when it was nice out, dressed very warm because her body stays cold. And she was kind of just wandering around the store doing her thing. And like I said, I pick up on everything because I'm at the front of the store. I'm tall. I see the entire floor. I understand people patterns. I'm kind of like an FBI profiler at times, the way I can break things down and understand things just because you've run into so many people for so many years, right? Not saying I'm always correct, but I'm probably correct 80 to 85% of the time or more. Plus, are you looking for something? Are you in a hurry or on your lunch break? Are you coming from an office? Do you have kids and you're a housewife? Are you some business guy? Are you moving slow? Are you moving fast? There's just all these things I've seen over the years. And when you work retail, you are a partner with the retailer. So you are there to help them and any guest that is in that store. And that's naturally what I do. Plus, people are going to ask me for help anyway. They see me working. You draw attention over to you. You look professional. It's just what happens. 9 out of 10 times people come to me and I'm like, well, I don't work here. but I can help you, or they work here, or he works here, or she works here, or those two people talking over there work here, or the people in that shirt that says Target work here, or the ones in the blue Best Buy. So I can go on, right? But it's just what happens when you're good at what you do and you work. You attract attention and you attract people who need help and who need service. So I end up talking to this lady, and she's explaining to me how she's from downstate, Champaign, Illinois, and, she doesn't like it up here. And, like I said, I'm in Schaumburg at the Best Buy. Schaumburg has a very high population of, Indian people from India. And for some reason, this freaked this lady out, and she did not like that at all. And I'm like, watch what you're saying. I'm like, there's a lot of people here that you can offend. And while I don't side with you and agree with you, and you're kind of ignorant, you have to watch what you're saying when you're talking to me, because I don't want to be involved in talk like that, like any racist or bigot or anybody. So as she's talking to me, she's explaining the world that we live in, and how everybody's watching and everybody's listening, and there's eyes everywhere. And I'm like, okay, I got you. I understand technology. I understand satellites. I understand the advent of smart homes and everything that's been happening the last couple of years, because I interviewed with some of those companies too. And the product lines were just too insane. And I'm like, this is not my jam. I'm more into the entertainment and content side versus all this connected home stuff. So we're talking, and she's starting to freak out about even the store. She goes, look at all those TVs on the back wall. Look at all the cameras. Look at all the listening devices. And look at all the Amazon Smart Home and Google Smart Home and, Vivint and all these other companies. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, but it is what it is. And then she's pointing to all the cameras in the ceiling. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's security, and they got to keep an eye in the sky. I'm like, and lost and theft and prevention. But she was really going on and on and on about where does all this information go? How much of it is recorded and saved? How much of it is deleted? How much of it is the government really using? But all these other races and all these other beings and all these other dimensions. And at the time, I'm listening to her, and I know she's not here to shop or buy anything. I know she's into talking and she's doing her thing. And maybe even a little bit on a different, I don't know if I want to say level or spectrum, or a different vibration, or a different dimension, or maybe schizophrenia. Because I don't want to classify or put anybody into an illness or a rating or a doctor's thing, because people are who they are, right? Their reality is their reality. And for us to point at them sometimes, or to say they need medication, or they're sick, or they're this, or hey, I'm JFK Robert Jr., whatever the fuck his name is in the government right now, and he's trying to create like a list of autistic people, great, fascists, right? So the thing is, as I'm rambling here and getting a little spun out, I'm listening to her and I'm realizing, what level is she on? Well, then she starts talking about this software development company down in Champaign that develops games and video games. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's called Violation. I'm like, they're one of the studios in Champaign or Urbana, because I knew the gaming industry. And, when you're in the industry, you know of the studios that are in the state, because there's so few in Illinois. They're mostly, at the time, West Coast based, and then they started popping up on the East Coast. But, entertainment capital is West Coast based, let alone tech industry, West Coast. So as we're talking, she's like, yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on down there. And, she was really just going into a whole different spiel. And I was like, well, I got to get back to what I'm doing. I'm like, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And if I can help you find anything, or, you need help, let me know. And she keeps rambling on and on and on. She goes, yeah, and they're working on virtual reality, and they're going to put us into a different dimension. And then they're really going to jack into our brains, and they're really going to do whatever, and blah, 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 blah. Well, I had already had these conversations, and I had already had these dreams and visions or ideas, and what could be possible in VR, and what could be built, and what's real and what's not real in that environment and in that experience, because your eyes and your senses and your brain and your ears and your fingers, they tell you what's real, right? Along with all the other peripherals and accessories that were being created for VR to enhance your experience. So I started to listen to her, and I'm like, okay, now where's she going with this? And then she's tripping out on VR and freaking out about it and what it's going to unleash and what it could do to people, and things I had thought about, or things I'm like, wow, this could be a great educational medium to really take people to the next level with experiences. She goes to me, and what do you do? I go, I promote virtual reality. I go, this is the Oculus Rift headset, and this is the Oculus Go. And she almost had a heart attack. And she didn't even know who she was talking to this whole time. Or she didn't realize the case that she was standing next to with the two headsets and the touch controls, the branding and the signage and everything in the glass case that showed, how our stuff worked. Let alone the mobile aisle behind me for mobile and mobile VR through Samsung and, Android. And she almost had a heart attack. And she looked at me like I was some troublemaker or being from another place. And it was just very interesting because she was at a different vibration. She was in a different timeline. She was in a different space. Her head and her environment and her world and whatever happened to her, or whoever she was since birth, this was her jam. This was her sharing her truths. This was her explaining what she sees from the cameras, from the smart doorbells, from the TVs, from the video, from the time lapse, from all the content, from everything being on hard drives, to everything being monitored, to the government, to every keystroke, to, every search engine. And I understand where she was going in a way, and her concerns and her validity. But this was just another time I'm like, okay, what could I take from this? What could I learn from this? What did I pass on to her maybe? And what was her reality, right? What was she vibrating at? Where was her consciousness at? And as she walked around the store, I saw her engaging with customers, and then customers talking to her for a bit, and people trying to get away from her, but then someone else in the couple was like, maybe the husband was engaged and the wife wasn't. Or maybe somebody in the group went on to do their shopping and someone else was talking with her. So I went over and told loss prevention and one of the managers, I said, look, I had a very interesting discussion with her for probably 10 or 15 minutes. I guess she's definitely in a different dimension, on a different level. I go, I don't think she's here to shop. I go, and while that's fine, I go, be mindful of who she's engaging and what she's saying, or if she's bothering people. And they're like, all right, that's cool. Thanks for the heads up. And that's just me being like retailer friendly. I don't really care. And she was in the store for the next 2 hours, talking to people, talking to employees, speaking her truth, and just dropping off whatever she needed to drop off or whatever she needed to do. Because you also don't know and you don't understand the reason for people being and why they're here, or why they've incarnated here, or if they're a walk-in, or if they're a hybrid, or if they're a multidimensional being. They are leaving something behind. They are picking something up. They are taking something with. They are bringing something forward. We are all here contributing in our own way, shape, and form beyond just what people see from the day to day. And we're all doing work in one way or another. And that goes into many other discussions I had with people, or many other imprints I left on them, or just things you pass along every day. And this is my longest video, right? And I've been talking a lot, and I'm approaching the 30-minute mark, but I'll leave you with just one more little thing. This guy comes to mind. And this guy had a very interesting light and a very interesting being about him. He was walking around the Best Buy one day. Got a South American look to him, long black hair, interesting vibe. Like a shaman or something. The way they're depicted in books or movies, from that South American culture. And as he was just looking at everything and observing, I go, how are you today? You doing all right? And he goes, yeah. I go, is there anything I'd help you find? I go, do you need help with anything or anybody? And he goes, no. He goes, I'm cool. And I go, okay. I go, are you interested in stepping into VR today? Do you want to try our Oculus experience? Blah, 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 blah. He laughed and he scoffed. And he goes, I designed this 10 years ago. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I built this, for the government 15, 20 years ago. He's like, what you're seeing now is not even, top of the line. He's like, I've been working on this, and I don't know what he said again. It's about 10 years ago, something else was upgraded. And you know how it is with the government. A lot of things are developed by the government first and those massive corporations, and then they're rolled out to the public if the government sees fit, or the government allows those companies to roll it out because the government can control it or monitor it or monetize it, or has written off on what they'll allow those companies do to monetize it. And I go, really? I'm like, how was it that you were working on virtual reality? Because I know the government's been using it in different ways. He goes, flight simulators, special ops, training before this, training before that, space program. He just went down the list. And I'm like, okay, right on. I'm like, I've heard of that. I'm like, it makes sense. I'm like, and I know the government uses it in many different forms, in many different ways. And there's many different forms of what you would call, at that time, virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and a little bit of everything in between, along with different sectors, right? From firemen using it to train, to pilots, to doctors and neurosurgeons and architects, to just things in the laboratory or things in a group, hive mind, or just things connected where it's like, hey, we're going to broadcast this transmission from Mars, and we're going to have all these people there at the same time in VR on a live NASA feed, so everybody can experience it at the same time, but then everybody gets to have their own opinion on what they saw or what that looked like or what that shape is, or as they're exploring the environment, right? Let alone with the model of a new car maybe, or the model of a new building. You can connect people around the country or the world and take them into this virtual environment and have this experience all at once, rather than flying everybody in and showing them a model of something. So anyway, I'm getting distracted here. But as this guy talked to me and we had a very interesting discussion, I was like, all right, well, thanks. And, he imparted a lot. And he goes, when the government throws a couple $1 billion at you, they just tell you to design it, make it happen, create it, figure it out. And that's what we did. And I'm like, okay, right on. So it was funny because years later, or a year and a half later, I was doing a market check and I was in a Best Buy, and same dude walking around, just strolling through the store, just checking everything out. And he didn't recognize me, or if he did, he didn't care to say anything. And I was going to say something to him. And I'm like, is this just another person who's walking around looking to talk? Is this another person who's in a different dimension at their own vibration, and maybe they're just fabricating stories? Is this somebody who's on the level or schizophrenic or something else and is just a compulsive liar? Because I ran into people like that over the years, let alone the city of Chicago and all the territories down there and all the different stuff I would run into. So there's a lot of talking today, and a lot of it seems like rambling. And you just don't know who you're running into and what message they're bringing to you, what keys and codes spiritually they're bringing to you, or dropping off, or picking up, or clearing. What people are really human, what are hybrid, what are walk-in, what are maybe reptilian, what are something other, as my ex-partner would say, something other, choosing something other, doing something other, being something other. And that exists, and that happens all over this planet. So for people who are awake and people who are aware and people who are alert, they pick up on this stuff, okay? For people who aren't, it may go right past them every day and they don't know anything any wiser. Or some people are like, that was really weird, or that person was really interesting, or that was really unique. And here's this dude right now who just pulled up. I can't even begin to talk about him and the times I've run into him. And this dude's lived out here for over 50 years before it was all developed. He used to stargaze and do astronomy, and he still does. And he was hanging out here in the 70s when it was still all farmland and not developed. This dude works for the Smithsonian. He's worked in a lot of other high-end places. And even though me and him have had discussions, he has popped up in some really interesting times when I've been out here. And the one time I was talking to him, he doesn't even believe in UFOs or UAPs or other beings. And I'm like, dude, you've been studying stars and astronomy, and you're in an astronomy club out here, and you've been doing this for like 40 plus years, and you're like Smithsonian smart, and you've got connections to all this other knowledge and hidden information, and you don't even believe that? And maybe he just didn't want to get into it with me or talk about it, but he was like a hard no. And I was just so taken back by somebody who I thought was enlightened or educated or could maybe see beyond the veil, let alone someone who looks up at the sky all the time at night, whereas I'm 99% of the time just looking up in the day. And I'm like, you've never seen anything weird. You've never had an experience. Something didn't throw you off, or the people you were with, the groups that you were out with, the times that something just didn't make sense. Plus, you've got a telescope. You've got multiple telescopes. And you're looking at a spectrum and a clarity versus even my human eye and nothing ever. But that's how it is. If you don't believe in it, you're probably not going to see in it. If you're not ready for it, it's probably not going to happen. If you're not manifesting it or vibrating at that level, it's probably never going to come into your vibration for your person or yourself. And it relates to, I think, story number 3. When I was here and I pulled the couple in and I asked them to look, and the wife could see it and the partner, the guy, I'm assuming husband, could not, and he thought we were crazy. Little peregrine falcon doing a low fly today. Baby peregrine falcon. There's a huge peregrine falcon earlier. Turkey vultures are out here. Interesting stuff. Totally clear skies. The other time with my partner, story number 8, it was transitioning in and out through the dimension or through the veil, and she was losing it, or she lost it, or she thought it was gone. I go, no, it's right there. So different strokes for different folks. You can't say what somebody did and didn't see, or what they did and didn't experience. The same thing goes for my mom and all the times that she has seen Jesus. And people think it's funny, or where she saw Jesus or when she saw Jesus, and they laugh and they're like, oh, how crazy. And it's like, she's not. Jesus appears when you need Jesus to appear, right? Angels appear when you need angels to appear. Other beings appear on your team when they're supposed to, where you need it or where you're ready for it. And the same happens with other beings or other experiences. So I wanted to throw this in to complement story number 8 a little bit. I wanted to throw something else in that was going to be in like a different timeline with other stories. And I wanted to throw something else in that happened in the real world, in the retail sector, in the same store, at a time where I was following some really crazy tech and was really trying to, get into something different, and was really behind the vision at the time. And just those 3 people that were very unique and very interesting. But I'll tell you, this dude and his surfer bro dude, they scared the shit out of me. Or the dude talking to me did. There's something that just freaked me out, and I had to get rid of him. And I don't know what his intentions were, or why he was grilling me so hard about some of my opinions and thoughts and future goals. And I don't know why he scared the shit out of me. He just did. And his friend was like a puppet. Never saying, dude, this was awesome, or man, I liked it too, or dude, what about... They didn't even converse with one another. This guy was just like a dummy that was there as a prop to throw people off or to take a focus off this dude. And I didn't understand it at the time because I didn't know it, but I knew something was up. And then years later, through experiences and books, like I said, and shows and learning about things and hearing about other reactions, you understand how these things happen. So peace, love, and light to all. This is a very lengthy video, but it's the truth, and it's how it's coming out. I hope you are all doing well. I hope it makes sense, and I hope you enjoyed this. Peace, love, and light to all. Have a great day. Blessings.